This VideoNet interview at IBC 2015, I'm speaking with Bülent Çelebi, who is the Executive Chairman and Co-founder at AirTies. Hello.
Hello.
Now, you've been talking for some time about the bottleneck in bandwidth and how it's moving from the wired networks into the home. Correct. And the irony is that the faster your wired network becomes, the more dissatisfaction you could create because of the Wi-Fi. So just tell us that process.
Over the last several years, the number of connected devices in the home has exploded, as what everybody talks about. But the Wi-Fi speeds have not really improved. What has gone on is the latest and greatest technology makes things a lot faster if you're in the same room. If you go over 2 or 3 rooms over, 2 or 3 walls over, there is a exponential drop in the total capacity. And that was not that noticeable in the past when we had relatively slow broadband speeds. Okay, if you had a 10 megabit broadband pipe coming in, and if you only got 5 megabit or 1 megabit in some other corner of the house, it wasn't all that noticeable, and we weren't really streaming video. Okay, if you got a poor performance and you were downloading a web page or an email and then it comes back and you didn't notice, well, it didn't feel fast, but it wasn't all that visible. Now you have broadband speeds of hundreds of megabits. Mainstream, especially the cable guys, are really pushing it. Of course, the fiber deployments, etc. And anything above 20 megabits starts becoming very visible, and especially if you are, if somebody is viewing something on a tablet in one room, and another family member is watching, Netflix on the main screen TV, and you have all these different video things running around, and it just creates the perfect storm. So all these clients plus video crashes the whole network, and now it's just extremely visible.
So you created mesh technology to deal with that, and now you've gone a step further with this client steering technology, which eliminates sticky devices, as you say. So yes. Tell us what a sticky device is first of all, and then explain what the client steering technology is.
Okay, so the what happens is first off, where to connect. The decision as to where to connect is done by the client. Okay, so that's the mobile phone, the tablet, etc. So let's say that you have a dual band concurrent router at your house, and then you went and spent some extra money, you bought yourself a repeater. So you now have 4 different sets of radios that this mobile device can decide to where to connect to. And it's making a decision with no knowledge about what the network looks like or any of the traffic or anything else like that. It's just basically typically looking at the signal strength and then deciding. And since 2.4 gigahertz has better propagation characteristics, it almost always looks better. Okay, and so the mobile client tends to go to the 2.4. In fact, if it goes to sleep and then wakes back up and then it's looking at the various different stuff, again it goes back to the 2.4. Or if it is connected, let's say it connected to the main router in one room, and then you started moving throughout the house and there were actually better available connections, it doesn't disconnect from the original connection and then reconnect to a better connection. And so we call that the sticky client. What's even worse about it is that as it sticks to that connection and gets further and further away, it is now connecting at a much lower link speed than it would have otherwise. And so now it's consuming 60–70% of the available airtime capacity of the Wi-Fi network. So then not only is it performing badly itself, but it's actually impacting the performance of other devices that are much closer to the AP, and they should have been connecting at hundreds of megabits, and they're now connecting at 5 megabits. So it's just really, really painful. And so that's this thing that we're talking about. And we really learned about this stuff as we were deploying the mesh networks, and it's like we run into these different cases, and so what we basically have implemented is a method of making the decision as to where the client connects as part of the network. We do some sophisticated mumbo jumbo about how we go about doing it, but we basically decide the APs talk between themselves. They look at who's got the best signal strength, who's got the best link capacity, and by the way, sometimes a higher signal point might be a wrong place to connect to, because if it's going out to the internet and the thing is actually closer to the router, it's better off connecting at a slower speed and not repeating. So there's a whole bunch of logic that you need to go through to figure out exactly where to connect. And then, so these devices, the APs talk to each other, make a decision, and say, we want this guy to connect at 5 gigahertz to this particular AP. And then they basically guide it over there, and if it doesn't listen to our guidance, we force it over there.
Okay, there's no change in the end devices?
There's none. So long as it's Wi-Fi certified, we manage it. I mean, there's just so many different devices and versions and things like that, and who's going to, load an app onto yet another app, right? And then you're going to have guests coming into the house, and it's not a manageable situation. So we said, okay, we have to do this inside the network itself.
Okay, and you're field trialing this as we speak. So what have you learned from the field trials?
There's several field trials going on, and what we learned is that all of these devices behave differently. Okay, there's so many different versions of Android and chipsets and this and that, and they all behave differently. We've learned things like they tend to stick to 2.4. We would have thought that the dual band guys would have gone the other way, and what we've seen is over a course of several days, okay, a particular client may have to be steered 20, 30 times. Okay, I mean really frequently. So because as people are moving around, or the phone goes into standby, which is normal, it's trying to save battery, right? If it goes in and out, this whole mechanism has to be done all over again. And sometimes it makes the right connection, and a lot of times it doesn't. And so we've had to do that regularly. But as a result of this, what we found is we're actually getting 80 to 90% of the theoretical maximum throughput that is possible that these things are equipped with, because some are equipped with 2x2, others are 1x1, 11N versus 11AC, et cetera. And so we're able to get very close to the theoretical capability. So it's been quite a learning exercise, and the more data we're getting about the various different clients, we're getting a little bit more sophisticated algorithms.
Okay, well, talking about rich data, another thing that you've been talking about this year is the idea of marrying the Wi-Fi data that you collect with the big data world.
Yes.
And using sort of information to optimize quality of experience. So just explain how you do that. I mean, how can you improve, quality of experience, not just literally monitoring the signal strength, but other things around that?
Obviously, the more access points you have, the more things we can do. But even in a case of just a single access point, you still have the 2.4 versus 5 gigahertz issue. But actually seeing how these clients are actually connecting, and at what rates are they connecting, at what time of day is this happening, with that information, you were able to come up with methods of calculating when, or suggesting that if you added an additional access point repeater over here, you would actually get a significant improvement in performance. We can actually, with real data, turn around and show the consumer, or for that matter, the call center of the operator, what is actually going on, and in that consumer's network. And it's like, at between this hour and this hour every night, this particular mobile device, and we know its MAC address, we know who the brand is, we know the OS, etc. This device is causing the network capacity to spike. Okay, do something about it, right? And add additional devices, go buy a new box, something. We can actually show that. So it is surprising how much information you're able to collect, and then by analyzing all that data to come up with recommendations. Because most of the things that actually occur with poor performance are situational, or they're not happening all the time. It's like some person decided to watch Netflix on a tablet and do it in the bedroom. Okay, and you have a problem now, but 1 hour later, when they move to a different room, the problem's gone away. So you need to look at this over a time frame to actually see that actually happening. And if it's recurring, then okay, you got a recurrent type of a situation. You can also look at your neighbors. Okay, what channel is being really used consistently, and then see maybe you ought to be looking at a different channel. You can start managing. If it's a multi-dwelling unit apartment complex, you can start managing the channel allocations between the different floors, et cetera. So enormous amount of stuff that can be done.
So this could be very proactive. You could say to the customer, the service provider, if you offered your consumer an access point, an additional one, and suggested that they put it near their bathroom, that would kind of improve their quality of experience dramatically.
Exactly.
Okay, and also, you can tell where somebody's watching, not just on a device, but the fact they're in the kitchen.
Correct.
Potentially. So that has potential for marketing, and I've heard you talking about potential for advertising. If you know that someone's in the kitchen, for example, maybe ads that are related to cooking.
Yeah. So there's two ways of actually trying to figure out where these things are. So if you have a single access point, you just know how far, more or less with a very high degree of error, how far they are from the single access point. If you have 3 access points, you can start using triangulation to start figuring out where that thing is. And usually the location of the individual access points, so you can look at a signal strength and say, okay, this person is really around here. The Bluetooth iBeacon thing is basically, it's looking at the probe requests, and in that case they physically put one in every room, for example, and then you can actually physically see, this person is within Bluetooth range of that room, and so you can use those types of techniques. It's not a highly accurate type of a technique, but if one of these access points is in the TV room. There's a pretty good idea that and the mobile phone has got a very close range to it. That they're essentially more or less in that area. So you can clearly start. And by the way, we know exactly what type of device it is as well. So and things like smartphones are not 100% correlated, but there is a correlation of, this phone is Bülent Çelebi's phone. And I pretty much carry it with me wherever I go, even throughout the house. And so you clearly know that a person has arrived, or who is there, and more or less what room that they're in. And the obvious thing to do with that information is targeted advertising. But then if you start taking a look at things like, what is companies like Google and Nest doing with some of this stuff, and then you can go into energy management, you can go into security, you can go, it seems like there's a almost endless number of things that can be done.
Okay, and I guess your vision is that the Wi-Fi network should never slow down the broadband, so you can put the whole throughput from the physical pipe right through to the device.
Yes.
How close are we to actually achieving that?
It just depends on how much money you want to spend, right? If we were to put one of our access points, one in every room, we can do that today, okay? Is that an ideal solution, or how much are people willing to pay for it, et cetera? Those are some of the debates. We want to start utilizing some of the, not just the Wi-Fi itself as a link, if you will. But we're also looking at adding PLC into the equation. There's good old Ethernet. I mean, some houses are wired. If they're wired, why not take advantage of the fact that they are wired? And in the case of PLC, the issue is statistically only 90+% of the socket pairs can give you this level of performance level of X, and which is typically what the consumer expectations are. However, there may be a pair of sockets that maybe it's only 50% of the time, but it actually operates at hundreds of megabits. So you do get that, but you don't. It's not something you can predict. It is something that you have to measure on the spot, and actually see what happens. And of course, if somebody turns on the blow dryer, it may change. And we can use that information to create additional links to keep on bringing the capacity up. And then there are things like, of course, the general path that Wi-Fi is going through, with the multi-user MIMOs and the 8x8s and the tri-bands, and so we'll continue adding all that stuff into the equation. But our goal is to be able to add, the tier 1 or the top tier service offering of the cable operators, which is typically the ones that are leading the charge. We want to be able to keep up with that throughout the house.
Great stuff. Okay, well, I hope you achieve that soon, because we'd all like that. So thanks very much for telling us about it, and it's great talking to you again.
Thank you very much.